Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Worship Tech Tour here at Vintage City Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. We're gonna unpack for you their PA and mixing solution that was designed by Chris Greeley, the mix engineer behind a lot of what you've heard from Bethel Church and Bethel Music. They've got a really cool drum shield. They got this really innovative acoustic treatment that doesn't look like your typical paneling all around the room. And overall, just the aesthetic, the vibe of this church and this newly built worship center is incredible. So I'm really excited to introduce you to the production team here, as well as the Octane integration team who made all this happen. So without further ado, let's dive in. First, introduce yourself.
So I am Thatcher Sanders. I work with Octane AVL, and here at the church, I am the lighting director.
Tell us about these panels. Like, this does not look like your typical acoustic panels that you find in a church.
So these here are from, I think the company's called Telewall, if I'm remembering correctly. And basically what it is, it's a track, plastic track system that we staple to the wall. And then we can put in whatever type of acoustic material. So in here's an Owen 705 acoustic material. It's a fiberglass sheet in like 2x4 feet panels that you just kind of slap in. We put it with like adhesive glue just so it sticks on the wall, and then we take a fabric from that same company and stretch it over and tuck it into those tracks. So you get this really seamless look. And I mean, this piece right here is like a 20-foot wide piece by 5 feet tall. So you get a lot of flexibility, less seams in the room, and it's really just a beautiful product.
All right, tell me what we're looking at here with the PA.
So here we've got an 8-box line array system from Meyer Sound. These are the Lenas. We are running these, each box has their own home run back to a Galaxy 816, and it's given us a little thing called low-mid beam control, which allows us to shape the entire array to hit certain frequencies in certain areas, and we can kind of control how the PA really sounds in the room. And then on the side there, we've got a fill that's an X40. On the stage, we have UP4 Slims from Meyer, just as a front fill, really for the first 2 or 3 rows, just because we kind of have a little bit of a hole here, just because our room is huge, super wide. So the subs we have here are a custom cardioid array of subs. These are the 900 LFC from Meyer. So we have 2 forward-facing, 1 back on both sides, and they're kind of on this slanted side, which is really interesting. Most places you can't really get away with that, but because of how this room is shaped, how wide it is, we're able to really steer the subs with this angle, and it gives amazing low end. It's huge in here. So
I really like how shiny this floor is, and but it's dark. Like, what's going on here?
So this is a Roscoe dance floor, and it's essentially what most churches do with this material is get it in matte, and what we decided to do is get a low gloss. And the actual, the sheen comes from what we put on the stage. We just put like a finish on it to help keep it clean and keep the scuffs as minimalized as possible. And so it really gives that nice sheen. And what's awesome, what I love as a lighting guy, is it kind of gives you another light fixture. So like on camera, you feel like there's, light bouncing up as well as coming down. So yeah, I think it's a Roscoe Performance dance floor. And then we just have the regular old finish on it.
I like the little wheeled platforms you got there.
Yep, those are the Wagner risers. On the keys riser there, that's 2 of them together that are 3 foot by 6 foot. And then on our drums riser, it's 2 that are 4 by 8 foot. So we have a little bit more room on that one because that drum cage is a little bit heftier, and you want to have room for your drummer to not feel like he's being squashed in there. So
you can see, guys, a lot of the acoustic treatment along the back of the stage as well.
Yep.
Helps keep down the stage volume, better control.
One of the things I love about this space is the acoustics are not overly done. So it's still lively enough that, like, if you were to do your clap test in here, you'll hear maybe 1 or 2 ripples, but it dies real fast. Yeah. And so what you get is when people are singing, it's not like painfully dead, and they can hear their own voice, but they can also hear the sound really well. Yep. So I think it really offers, in my opinion, a great opportunity to create live sound.
Oh, that's cool. So that's the back of the LED panels. That's
so
what
this
he's
is
talking about.
the Unilumen UPad 3, 2.6 millimeter tiles, and we have an 8x4 wall here, and we just did kind of like a box header there that we hang from, and then our audio engineer is a custom woodworker, and so he did a trim out of wood there, so that front face is just pretty much seamless. So this is our custom amp room that we built in this project because we love to re-mic our amps instead of using just pedal boards, things like that. We love the sound of a re-mic'd amp. And so we built this with the intention of having a place where we can cut as much of the sound from bleeding onto the stage, but still have it really functional. And so this holds about 6 amps. And then we have just cables coming out of the conduit into the SGI boxes on stage, hitting the pedal board and going back to front of house. So.
Oh, okay. So on a typical Sunday, you have like your lead guitarist is using 2 amps?
Yep. Yeah, so we do our guitars in stereo, so they'll have a left and a right amp that are both going back. So we have essentially 4 guitar channels for 2 guitars.
Okay, what do we got going through here? Let's just maybe run through the rack.
Yeah, so we just got a little Vizio backstage monitor here just to be able to see what we're doing if we're ever teching stuff, make sure that we've got signals going. And then we've got the Nova Star UHD Junior. That's a 4K controller for our LED that has pip control, so we're able to do lyrics overlaid on our iMac or our media sources, whatever we're running there. We have some data stream 4s in there that we're not currently using. Those are just distros in case we want to run our lights out of one universe into multiple locations. Super helpful. And then down a little bit further, we've got the NetX2s from Chauvet. Those are our lighting nodes. So that gives us we use streaming ACN protocol. You can use ArtNet as well, or actually just regular DMX. But that gives us flexibility of getting 8 universes in on one Cat5 cable, and then you have pretty much whatever you want to output there. With the MA system, we can set it in the output settings to whichever universes we want. So I could have universe 25 on the 8th port there if I wanted to. So that's really, really helpful. And then moving down a little bit further, we've just got our little patch bay for our SDI stuff. We pretty much just do that, like our cameras and tie lines in there, but we've got a couple other things in there, like iMac, lyrics, a couple Genlock feeds and things like that that go in our floor boxes to our cameras. And then we've got a couple SDI distribution things there just to send the same signal multiple places so we're not eating up too many inputs and outputs. And then the Shure ULX D4 stuff for our wireless handhelds and mic packs. We just do mic packs for our speakers. We don't have any wireless on our worship team yet. Hopefully that's something we can move into in the future, because that's awesome to have wireless vocals and things like that. And then we have a Galaxy 816 and a Galaxy 408 for our Meyer. Those are driving our PA. So the 816 is running the main arrays, 8 channels on both sides. And then the 408 is the subs and fills. And that really just gives us the flexibility to do, like I said earlier, that low mid beam control stuff. So with how it's right now with the 816 and the 408, we essentially have 24 channels of control. We're using 2 AES cables from the console to go 1 into each of them. And it allows us to send a separate zone, if you will, to each of the speakers. And that just gives us ultimate flexibility when it comes to shaping the room. If there's a high frequency that's hitting somewhere we don't want, we can take it out of 1 box instead of out of 4 of the array. So Chris Greeley designed this rig with this low mid beam control, and he was able to shape the room, and it sounds, in my opinion, it sounds as close to perfect as you're gonna get. Lastly, a couple other things. We've got the driver for those front fills there, and then the AN16i for our Avioms. That's for the in-ear monitors for our band. And then our Digico D2 rack is driving all of our inputs and outputs.
So you got some cable management going on here?
Yeah, just a quick cable ladder, wall, whatever you want to call it. We had something like this in our other space, and then once we moved in, we didn't really factor that in, and so we were having to walk all the way across the building to get XLRs, and that just was not making a lot of sense. So we decided to just hang this guy here and have some flexibility there with, Ethernets, XLRs, TRS, whatever you would need on a Sunday.
Nice. And then you got your toolbox, guitar paraphernalia. That's what I read right here. Nice. Great label there. Drum stuff.
Yep. All the nice logos.
Walk us through this drum shield.
So this is a custom drum shield from Octane. A guy named David Bridge mostly designed this, him and Chris Greeley. So this is a 1/2-inch plexi that we're using here, and I think they're 4 foot by I think it's 7 feet tall sheets that we just bolted together with these little clear plexi plates, and then we have like this track in the lid that you can actually mount some mics to if you wanted to, but it's just holding up that top piece of acoustic, and that acoustic is actually a little bit different. It has a wood back. It still has all of the same internal stuff, but it has a wood back, so it helps to not let it go as much through. It just traps it, and then kind of kills it a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this gives us a ton of space. I mean, it's effectively 8 feet by 8 feet for our drummer to set up their whole rig and move cables and still be able to, you know, play in there comfortably.
Explain the differences between the box shape versus the kind of fish tank.
Yeah, so the box shape, what it does that we love is it actually keeps your stereo image. So the beauty of drums is that you have your overhead left, your overhead right, and you're able to have those actually be what's happening on the left, what's happening on the right. But if you do the parabolic shape, the more like fish tank as they call it, it ends up taking away most of your stereo image because it creates that dish shape that everything hits into, meets back in the same point, and then you also get some phase cancellation, so you end up losing a lot of what you're actually trying to hear. So what we love about this shape is it really just creates almost effectively, if you were just to put a drum kit in a room, like if you're in a studio, just put it in a room and mic it, you get a similar feel out of this. It just helps to lower the decibels in the room of what the acoustic drums put out. So I think, I don't know the exact metric, I don't know that we've measured it, but I imagine based on what I've heard, it has to cut at least 10 or 15 decibels in the room. Somebody could hit a snare in here and you're standing out front of house and it's really not that loud. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in an open room when somebody's playing drums and you're trying to be at front of house working, and it's pretty annoying.
Complete nightmare.
It gets so loud. So
because then here you got this curtain. Is there also more treatment behind?
There is, yeah. That's a Black Beauty there on the snare. I think it's a 14-inch, I want to say. And then we've got lots of Zildjian cymbals here. K-Light Ride over there.
K-Custom Light Ride. And then we got another K Zildjian. I see some Audix microphones.
Yeah.
I see is that the Shure 91 down there?
Yeah, I think so. And then we, I think, is that a 545 there on the snare?
Yep, it is 545D.
Yep. And then on the bottom, I think we've got another one down there. And then yeah, the Audix ones are great for tom mics.
Hot shot here to be able to talk front of house or
Hot
something.
shot for our little talk back there, and it goes to all the band. And we just have the hot shot because it gets really noisy if you don't. And then SPD here for any effects drums that we want to do. This is our little bass rig. Just got a microsynth, tone hammer, tuner, and everything in there. It's awesome. It gives the bass player lots of flexibility to have a nice clean tone or a nice distorted tone for those big moments and everything. And so before in the other space we had a Nord Studio 5, I think, that we were using, or Stage 5, however their models are. And then we decided that we would rather run everything through Ableton, and we have this Studio Logic SL73 here. And this is just a glorified MIDI controller. So we have our Ableton rig, we plug it in here, run our tracks. If we're not using tracks, we just run our pads and key sound from that, and then that guy does all the work. So right here is just a Neumann KMS 105. We actually use for our main mics usually. This is one of our backups. We do that same on this one here, and then we usually use this guy here, which is a DPA de facto. We really love those. Super clear. I've noticed our audio guy is ending up having to like cut off all of his high pass filter there because you can hear everything and it doesn't get too glassy. With this mic you can hear all the highs and actually in a good way, and so cool. That's been super nice. So
nobody's using any wireless ears,
right?
Just tying into the Aviom too.
No wireless ears right now. I think at some point we would love to move into that, but right now it's just all Cat 5 Avioms.
There it is, SD9.
Yeah.
She's a beauty.
She is indeed.
Most of your Octane installs you recommend Digicos?
Yeah, we go with Digico whenever it makes sense in the budget. I think our next step is probably all the way down to an M32, because for bang for your buck, they're a fantastic console. There are some Digicos in there that you can get like an S21 or an S31 even for a little bit cheaper. But yeah, the SD9 is tried and true. SD9 with the D2 rack is fantastic. There's very few integrations that are gonna not be able to use that. I think the only time you can't use an SD9 with a D2 rack is if you're a band like Bethel and you've got like 50 channels and you need something bigger. So that's when you go to that SD rack. I would recommend this as, if you have the budget for it, this is where you should go with a D2 rack, no questions asked. So this is the MA2 fader wing and command wing on PC setup here. So we bought these consoles used because they don't make them anymore, but it's like the best thing on the market in my opinion. So I would love to use an MA3. Problem is, if you want to use MA3 in mode 2, which is the advantage of MA, you have to buy like a $40,000 console. Wow. So for this setup, we got this for I think like $9,000 or $10,000. It's just a little PC running it here that was probably $500 from Amazon. And it's running mode 2 MA on PC, and I have 21 faders that I can play with. 2 that are manipulatable for like timings, and I can put like a cue master on there, things like that. And then I have all of the control buttons too. So this setup is super awesome. It's my favorite for sure. So we'll start, right now we've got the Chauvet R3X wash on. We've got, I think 15 of those up right now. So we've got 8 on that back truss, 2 on each side. And then there's 3 we're using as kind of like a hair light right now. Those guys are fantastic wash lights. They're really big. You could even go with probably an R2X wash in this space. And that's actually what we've got on our key light truss. But the R3s I love. It's a big fixture, throws a huge light, super bright, nice and wide, nice and tight. You can do lots with it. Color mixing is beautiful. So I think I'm sold with Chauvet at this point. Like after using it, I've had maybe 1 or 2 lights in the last year go down that they fixed within, a couple weeks. Wow. And they've just been performing fantastically. So no complaints there from me. We've got the Q40 panel from Chauvet. There's 17 of those up on the stage right now. We've got 7 in the house using as a theatrical house wash. And so those guys are just kind of I think they're 14 degree panel light. We have a filter on them that makes them 24 degree. Just wanted a little bit more washy look out of them. And I'm kind of using them up there in the lid as a wash light, and then on that curtain as kind of like an accent light. The Strike Par 38s from Chauvet, and these are technically like a blinder, but we use them kind of just as like a CTO wash. So they only do CTO, that's it. So they're fun little accent light as well. We've got 30 of those guys, actually maybe 32 on the stage now.
I like the side ones.
Yeah.
There's a cool vibe to that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's when we redesigned this set. I loved that because it's like you can have just those on, and it's just such a nice warm wash across the stage. So I think we did it last year before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
But when we threw it up, I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool. So, and then for house lights, we've got the TLS. These are 150 watt white only house light from them. I think it's the HL series pendant, and it's their beautiful dimming curve. I can go all the way down, all the way back up. And we can control them individually. The only downside, in my opinion, to this light is that it's not an RGB fixture, but that was something that we intentionally bought at the time. I think looking back on it, it's always fun to have the capability of RGB in every light. So I think that's something we would maybe consider upgrading to, or maybe even going to more fixtures that are less bright, just to have like a little bit more of an even feel. Like the coverage is great, but these are some big boys. So normally we would run our R3s upstage pretty straightforward, facing down. We don't really do much when it comes to like moving lights or things like that. Obviously we have the flexibility, but I think I would do, maybe something, changing my colors, something along these lines, just create a little washy look. We can add a blue light in there somewhere. Like there's lots and lots of flexibility when it comes to that. What I love is we can turn off certain groups of fixtures and still have plenty of light on the stage. Like I have those crossing side stage R3s, and those add, if I just turn everything except for those off, like they add so much light to the stage there. So we've got a Stream Deck XL, I think is that model, running all of our clocks and lower thirds, things like that from here. We can also do iMac control. Usually I'll control iMac over from lighting. What we have here is we just have ProPresenter 7 run all of our teaching media, slide loops, lower thirds, songs, anything you can think of pretty much comes from here. And that's all running on a 2019 Mac Pro. We decided, and it wasn't really a tech decision. It was actually one of our executive pastors who was kind of running the project was like, I don't see a reason to not do sit-stand desks. So what we ended up doing was 3 nice size sit-stand desks here. And it's just super easy. You can just bring it up. Usually during worship, we have people stand and they can run ProPresenter like this. And then you have your presets, whatever button. You hit it back down, and then you're able to sit during the teaching. So these are fantastic. I was not sold on them when we first installed it. I was just like, I don't know why we need to, spend money on that. After using them for a year, I would never ask for anything else. It's so amazing to have that flexibility and change your desk. So this is our kids wing here, and this is kind of just the check-in area. We had these random Chauvet DJ intimidators, and we just added those to kind of spice up the area. Kids over the past few weeks, we just did this maybe 4 weeks ago. They love it. They're like jumping from dot to dot on the gobos and doing fun stuff there. So yeah, we'll head over to the north wing in a minute, but let's head upstairs. So we've got broadcast video here. We've got a 2ME broadcast switcher panel from Blackmagic, HS5s for the monitors, which is killer. This is a smart scope from Blackmagic, just so that we can reference any of our shots. A couple screens there for multi-view. We bought these from Best Buy thinking they were going to be great. Viewing angle is pretty terrible on them, but they get the job done if you're sitting straight on, so it works for our director. And then we've got the FreeSpeak 2 ClearComm system. We actually have it integrated with this EarTech system here. That was what we were using before. Fantastic, cheap comm system if you're ever looking for something. We have the 8-channel EarTech, and here's actually what the headsets look like. Yep. It's awesome because it has a feature where if your mic's up, it's muted. So you can bring it down, unmute it. Super helpful with volunteers that are in the room and you don't want that feed coming back through. So we're just doing a front of house SD9 feed. We don't have a broadcast mix right now. I think at some point we'd love to. We have a space for it. We just don't have the gear for it. Yeah. But if you ever listen to our stream, it sounds great, honestly, for being a board mix. So there's no rush for us to get that in. So totally. And then we've just got a web presenter here from Blackmagic for our stream feed. That gives us a little bit more flexibility with color changes, LUTs, things like that if we want to send that to the stream. Moving on over here, we've got our classic Blackmagic screen going on the Video Hub. That's the Smart Video Hub 40x40 6G. So that is kind of the one limitation to our system being in 4K, but we usually run in 2398, so we have no issue streaming in 4K there. And then we've got the 8K 12G 40 input-output constellation from Blackmagic, and then everything else here is kind of tie lines, and we've got some hyperdeck recorders which are super helpful. Technically with those 3 here, and then we've got 2 at this rack, we've got 5 places we can record ISO feeds, which is super, super awesome. And so what's fun is with this encoder, we're actually, you can see right here, input standards 1080p 2398, and we're streaming to YouTube in 2160 2398. Oh. And the reason we're doing that is just to kind of trick YouTube to not compress our stream as much, because YouTube likes to compress things. Yep. So we have noticed that it actually seems to look a little bit better when we stream 4K, even if it's just 1080 signal. We use the Blackmagic, I think this is a Micro Studio. So they are tiny. It's super old too. The Micro Cinema is a more commonly known one, and that has in-body recording. But the Micro Studio is just directly, it's mini BNC out. We use the Vaxis Storm 1000s for our wireless video, and then we just throw MFT lenses on this, whatever we can find. And it gets the job done. They look pretty good. Dynamic range, not super awesome, so our blacks get super crushed and our whites get super overexposed. But, it gets the job done. And then these 2 cameras here are for our communications team taking photos during the gathering. It's a EOS R there from Canon, and then that 5D. And those are awesome because this lens right here, 70-200 RF, is a fantastic lens. So this is a space we used to do church in. Yeah. It's 300 and what does it say there? 318 standing room only. And it's just a 4 Lena system here, and then we've got X20s on the floor there. As our fills, DL16, I think 2 DL16s running for our stage rack, M32 Live back here. Yep. So we've got this guy here, does good work. Like I said earlier, that Waves integration's not super awesome, but it still has it, and it's still good. Oh, yeah. So iMac from 2015 running ProPresenter 7, which gets the job done. And then Onyx M2 PC from when they were still Martin running our lights. So this guy is also pretty old, but again, this all gets the job done. And it's awesome for volunteers because they don't really have to do much. So the PARs we've got up there are, I think they're the Colorado 1 quad zooms from Chauvet. They're a little bit older. They are fantastic lights. They're fixed, but they have zoom capability. They have full color mixing, RGBW. And then we've got on the back wall there the MFL S100s from Amazon. They're like $90 a light. Yeah, they're like just like kind of like mini bar lights or even like a panel light kind of, and they're fairly bright. I mean, right now we're looking at like 20% of them. And they're literally, I think they were $100 a light, and I'm like, that's awesome. And then up in the lid, there's the bar lights are the X Bar LED strobe from Megalight, and then our key lights are MH6 washes from Martin, and then we've got a couple house lights out around that are the XL LED strobe from Megalight.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Worship Tech Tour. A huge thank you to the team at Vintage City Church for showing us around their space and just being a huge inspiration to the Churchfront community. I want to remind you to check out the links down below this video for our free worship ministry toolkit, for links to all of our favorite recommendations for gear when it comes to the best production for the local church. And also, if you'd like to work with our team, check out worshipministryschool.com, where you can apply to join our program, and we can actually visit your church and help you implement these solutions. If you found this video helpful, leave a like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time.